Annyeonghaseyo, this is meowmurai. Let's continue our game of Despera Drops, running on Nintendo Switch 2.
世界の果てまで逃げてみせる。
では参りましょうか。
これで問題ないか。
だから金持ちのやつらに復讐したかった。あいつらが金持っててもいいことなんてない。ゴミ捨て場を漁ってる僕らを人間と思ってないやつらが。
That was how he started stealing. In telling me his history, he confessed to his crimes. He stole knowing it would not heal his wounds.
それでもあいつの声は頭から消えなかった。傷の痛みがなくなる日なんてなかった。あいつがレオ、ティエリを、みんなを殺したんだ。だから僕が殺さなきゃいけなかったのに。
Like years of sludge and silt at the base of a riverbed, his anger, hatred, grief, and despair stuck to his heart and weighed down his spirit. His sorrow would never go away. My presence wouldn't be enough to heal his deep wounds. I contemplated the atrocity that robbed him of peaceful sleep. Why did Durand have to die just like that, leaving Rami behind in this world with a pain that had no outlet?
半袖とか僕だって海を泳いでみたかった。南の島にだって行ってみたかった。いろんなやってみたいことがあったんだ。それに他人のぬくもりを怖がらないようになりたかった。
He peered up at me. His beautiful eyes were damp with tears.
君に触れたかった。触れられたかった。でも無理なんだ。怖いんだ。君に甘えたいのに人に触られるのが怖いんだ。
He extended his hand toward my cheek, but stopped midway. Rami had endured so much pain at the hands of others. As such, he cried out in fear at the hands of others. I exhaled, only just realizing I'd been holding my breath. It clicked for me then how naive I had been. This boy had been acting like he was fine all along, so I never understood a thing. I didn't know what it really meant to live on the streets. I simply assumed he would be okay, that he had overcome his life's challenges. But no one was so invulnerable.
君に甘えるのが怖いんだ。僕はどうすればいいのかな。ずっとこのままなのかな。
Yeah, Rami's a criminal. I mean, he really can't seek normal therapy.
少し休憩しましょうか。
これでいいのか？
Let's see. It's okay to be this way for now. I'll be here until you're ready. We'll think it over together. We'll think it over together?
それじゃあこれから二人で考えよう。
え？
Rami turned to me, looking puzzled.
二人で考えるって何？
ラミー君が私に甘えられるようにどうしたらいいか二人で考えて一緒に頑張ろう。
ミカが一緒に考えてくれるの？
当たり前だよ。だって私もラミー君に甘えてほしいんだもの。だから一緒に頑張ろう。
His lips quirked up into a smile at my answer.
なんか頑張って甘えるって変じゃない？
そうかな。
そうだよ。甘えるために頑張るとか、普通はそんなこと考えないし。
でも考えちゃダメってこともないと思うよ。
かもね。じゃあ一緒に考えてよ。
Ooh, some feathers. The tension appeared to ease from Rami's shoulders. He wiped his tears away with his sleeves, took a deep breath, and willed his face to relax.
でも僕がミカに甘えるか、実際にどうやったらいいんだろう。全然わかんないや。
じゃあちょっとだけ練習してみよっか。
練習？
そう、触る練習、人になれる練習。ねえラミー君、私に触るのは一応平気なんだよね。
うん、少しなら。
じゃあ私に触ってみて。同じところを次に私も触るから。
At my urging, Rami timidly touched my cheek. I peered into his eyes, then reached out to touch his cheek in return. Rami's shoulders twitched the moment my hand brushed his skin. However, he didn't shake me off like he used to. He stayed still, enduring it. After some time, I ventured a question.
怖い？
うん、あったかい。
Rami closed his eyes, perhaps feeling the sensation of my palm.
あったかいね。ミカの手は全然違うや。女の子の手ってこんなに柔らかくて優しい手なんだね。
We remained like that for a while. Then Rami nodded.
君の手だけは大丈夫かも。
本当？
Rami brought his face closer to mine, his smile genuine.
でもさ、ダメだよ。女の子がそんな無防備なこと言っちゃ。
ラミー君にしかこんなこと言わないよ。
そんなんだから僕みたいな男が君の優しさにつけ込むんだよ。ねえ、君の優しさにもっとつけ込んでもいい？
え？
初めて他人が温かいって感じられたんだ。だから君にもっと甘えたい。
Rami buried his face in my neck and purred like a cat. He rubbed his cheek against my skin, sighing in delight.
あったかい。
ラミー君。
His body heat pressed against me had my heart pounding faster. Maybe I was more confused and nervous than he was.
頭撫でてくれる？
こう？
Yes, like a cat. I gently stroked his hair, trying not to alarm him. The ticklish tips of his locks were soft as fresh grass. Yeah, I know, this is like kind of like a private moment, but we'll pull through somehow. Rami sucked in a breath, perhaps a little afraid, but then he closed his eyes, settling into the sensation.
もっと。
痛くない？
痛くない。
怖くない？
怖くない。
With a sigh, he stood up straight and gazed into my eyes. Rather than clinging to me again, he pulled me into his embrace. Rami wrapped his arms around my back. It felt like he was making up for all the times he couldn't touch me. His hands wreathed me gently, tentatively, and though they trembled a little, I could tell it wasn't from fear.
Mika.
He called my name as if to confirm my presence. He looked down at me with a bolder gaze than I knew. Then he placed his palm on his chest.
次は僕のここ触ってみせて。
I did as he asked and felt his racing heart flutter against my palm. Rami was no longer showing any sign of fear. Until just earlier, his body tensed at the lightest touch, yet now his tender eyes were fixed on me.
やっぱ君なら平気みたいだ。ドキドキするけど、ほっとする。
そっか。
I was the one who suggested we practice, but I was feeling so awkward that I couldn't look directly at him. My eyes wandered to his throat, which bobbed as he let out a small chuckle.
僕、君が好きなのかな。
それは私にはわからないよ。
僕もよくわかんない。ただ、こうしたいって思うんだ。
He nuzzled my neck, cat-like, and capped it off with a nibble. But no, I'm getting a little serious. We were so close. I was frozen stiff. I hesitated to even breathe.
ラミー君。
甘えてみた。
Like a thirsty kitten seeking reprieve, Rami peppered me with nipping kisses. He didn't know how to seek and express affection, so slowly but surely he tested the limits of what he could do. The moment he raised his face, our eyes locked once more. Yeah, I know this is like it's almost too tender of a moment for this game. I mean, it is called Despera Drops, so I'm not expecting like good times. His entire aura suddenly changed. For a moment, his lips captured mine. Oh, I didn't think they actually would go through with a kiss. Sometimes these visual novels like kind of play around with romance. However brief a kiss it was, I forgot to breathe. After that, we stared at each other in silence. Neither of us could manage a word. Rami huffed a small sigh, brow furrowing sadly.
ごめん。
どうして謝るの？
だって僕
He buried his face in my neck to avoid my eyes.
やっぱり君が好きみたいだから。
I know, this is like the overly romantic version of like a first kiss, whereas like a real first kiss is usually like awkwardly slamming your face in somebody else's face and kind of grossly pecking at someone. His whisper carried such weight, he may as well have been confessing his sins. Depending on like if you're both wearing glasses or something, you know, it gets real weird. As someone who spent most of his life in a never-ending nightmare, Rami yearned for normalcy. Did he long for me because I'd lived an ordinary life? Maybe that's what truly fed his fascination. Still, I couldn't deny how happy I was when he told me he loved me, when he kissed me. At their core, these feelings of ours might be little more than an illusion. I knew nothing of the grander concepts of love or affection. They were grounds for uncertainty. For that very reason, I decided to be honest about what I felt, a desire to be with him so he'd never have to be alone again.
私もラミー君が好きだよ。
Rami gasped at my response. He lifted his face and looked at me, on the verge of crying.
君は本当に優しいね。
Now, it's very bold to say this. Usually Japanese romances and visual novels are like, they play around with this romance idea. So, yeah, it's kind of nice that they actually went for it. Rami hugged me tight, trying to hold back his tears. Frightened by the darkness of the night, he clung to me. I placed my hands on his back. I hoped I could help drive away the nightmares, I hoped I could drive away the nightmares he so feared so he could enjoy a peaceful sleep. Sorry, weird sentence. I probably wouldn't have worded it that way. I woke up to the morning dew falling from the plants. What, did we sleep out here? What, really? When I opened my eyes, I felt somebody's warmth next to me. I looked up, realizing that Rami was by my side. It seemed like I'd fallen asleep with my head on his shoulder.
Mika, おはよ
ラミー君、おはよう。
う。僕たち、あのまま寝ちゃったみたいだね。
うん。ごめんね。重たくなかった？
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would make sense that they would be here rather than go back to the hostel, where, obviously that would be incredibly awkward with everybody else around.
うんうん。全然。
Rami looked at me delightedly. He was no longer afraid of my touch.
今日は、なんだかいい夢を見た気がする。
本当？ラミー君。
うん。
よかった。
それよりさ、僕のことラミーって呼んでほしいんだけど、ダメ？
ラミー君じゃなくて？
だってなんだか子供扱いされてる気がするし、君とは対等になりたいから。
Oh, yeah, drop the formalities. I leaned closer, smiling. His bashful smile struck me as more mature than before, perhaps now that I was seeing it under the morning sun. This person had stayed tightly wrapped in the cocoon of boyhood to coexist with others, only to transform into a full-on adult in a single night. A little flustered by the new seductive shimmer in his light green eyes, I nodded.
わかった。ラミ
慣れない？
ー。少しだけ。
I guess if you're always used to using honorifics, having to drop the honorific is a big deal, right? I felt like I'd end up calling him Ram if I wasn't careful. He chuckled. Or Rami-kun? Yeah.
じゃあ練習してみて。僕の名前を呼んで。
ラミ
なーに？
ー。何って。
His stomach rudely interjected, begging for food. We looked at each other, then burst out laughing.
やっべ、だっせ。
Yeah, that's more like a moment in your first kiss where your stomach grumbles or you slip and fall or something like that.
そういえばラミー君は夕飯もろくに食べてないもんね。
Yeah, very rarely is your first kiss ever this nice. Yeah.
だからラミーだろ？
ごめん。つい癖で。
ま、癖が出ちゃうぐらい一緒にいたってことだろうから悪い気はしないけどさ。でもやっぱミカにはラミーって呼んでもらいたい。
じゃあラミー、帰ろっか。朝ごはんは何がいい？
そうだな。僕ハンバーガーが食べたいな。ほら大通りにあったじゃん、あのチェーン店のやつ。
Hamburger for breakfast. Dude after my own heart.
そういえばラミー、あそこのハンバーガー好きだよね。
Though in America it's very hard to get a hamburger for breakfast. He'd really enjoyed them back in Milan.
うん。ゴミ漁りしてた頃、運が良ければ捨てたてのやつを食えたからさ。僕にとってはごちそうの味なんだ。
He must have meant the chain's discarded hamburgers. When I didn't respond, Rami laughed heartily, probably to break up the tension.
あ、でも今日はクロワッサン食べたい気分かも。みんなも焼きたてのやつ買ってった方が喜びそうだしさ。
じゃあパン屋さんを覗いてみよっか。 でもまだやってないかな。
そうかも。じゃあ一旦帰ろうよ。みんなが起きる前に戻らないと騒ぎになるかもしれないしさ。
He had a point. If they realized we were missing, they'd be worried that something had happened to us. It was a miracle to believe that there were people who cared so deeply about us.
そうだね。じゃあ急いで帰ろっか。
Switzerland, Thun, August 5th, 2028, 6:45, Saturday, hostel. But by the time we made it to the hostel, they were already in a panic.
大変です。キッチンにもいませんでした。
バスルームにもだ。
じゃあお姉ちゃんたちどこ行ったの？私探してくる。
Crystal was about to rush out of the room when she bumped into me. The girl's eyes went wide, her hands on my skirt.
ごめんねクリステル。ただいま。
Crystal sprang into my arms. Rami and I apologized to our companions, who all looked relieved to see us.
ごめんなさい。心配かけてしまって。
どこに行ってたんだ？
あれだよ。朝ごはん買いに行ったんだ。ほら、昨日の食材はもう食べきっちゃっただろ？
その割に何も持っていないようだが。
それがさ、早すぎてどの店もやってなかったんだ。後でもう一回買いに行ってくるよ。
たく心配かけやがって。朝帰りにはまだ早いんじゃないか
Rami laughed suggestively at Hamiel's knowing stare.
朝帰りって。別に朝になって帰ってきただけだけど。
つまりそれを人は朝帰りと言います。
そっか。そしたら僕とミカは朝帰りの仲ってことで、これからはよろしく。
それどういう仲なの？
ちょっとラミー。
へえ、ラミー。ね
え。ほんと目ざといよな、ハミエルって。そういう細かい男は嫌われるよ。
大人になりたてのガキに心配されるほどじゃないさ。
とにかく何もないようでよかった。実はドミトリーの人間が話していたのを聞いたのだが、昨晩近くで殺人事件があったようで心配していたんだ。
I know. Gib wasn't having this conversation. He's like, okay. Rami's face tightened at the word murder.
実は僕、その死体見た。
本当ですか？一体どんな人が？
孤児院の支援をしていた慈善家デュランだったよ。
Without mentioning his own past, Rami began to explain what sort of person Durand was. He told them how the man used orphans to test the drops of Erd, the same drug Crystal was forced to drink. Rami was convinced the reason Durand supported Elmar and the other kids was because he wanted to use the drops of Erd on them.
もしかしてラミー君が殺しちゃったの？
だからやってないって。僕はただ孤児院のみんなが心配で様子を見に行こうって思っただけなんだ。その途中で死体を見つけたんだよ。
So it must have been House Steward that killed him.
だから誰がやったかも見てないよ。僕が発見した時にはもう冷たくなってた。
なるほどな。
でもトゥーンで殺人事件があったなんてニュースどこにも出てないよ。
マジ？
Sally showed us her phone screen. Just as she said, there was no local news featuring a murder.
チャンセラーと同じウルズの雫を使ってたんだろう。なられっきとしたクラウンの関係者だ。情報規制までされてるとなると十中八九口封じだろうな。
カルロス氏も言ってましたね。追っていた事件の証人が川に浮いたこともあったと。
問題はなぜ殺されなくてはならなかったかだが。
Gib glanced at Crystal, perhaps thinking better of speaking further on the subject with her present. When we met at the castle, Chancellor said the drops of Erd had finally been completed. Maybe he wanted to prevent anyone but him from using the drug. Did he kill Durand to monopolize it?
それより僕さ、お腹減ったんだけど、朝飯にしない？
じゃあすぐそこのパン屋さんに行こっか。もう空いてると思うし。
サリー、甘いやつがいい。
みんなは？僕はクロワッサン買ってくるけど。
別に食えれば何でもいい。
サンドイッチがあると嬉しいんですが、ハムや卵は抜きで、チーズなら OK です。
No eggs or meat on a sandwich? It'd just be a cheese sandwich then, I guess. Cheese and lettuce and tomato and maybe onion? I don't know. That's a boring breakfast.
めんどくさいから適当に買ってくる。
パンなら私が買ってくるが、ラミーは病み上がりだろう。
朝帰りする元気があるんだ。心配することはないんだろうぜ。
すぐそこだしね。5分もかからないから大丈夫だって。
Rami beamed at everyone as though to convince them that, unlike yesterday, he could smile again today. It served to reassure them that he would be back soon. Switzerland, Thun, August 5th, 2028, 7:11, Saturday, the Plaza. All traces of the night had vanished in the morning sun. We walked through the quiet streets with few passers-by, entered the shop that had just opened for the day, and bought baked goods for everyone. We returned to the hostel with a full bag of goodies, savoring the decadent aroma wafting off the pastries and breads.
やっぱクロワッサンは焼きたてだよな。
That's for sure.
ちょっとラミーってば、もう食べてるの？
だって腹減ったんだもん。
Unable to hold back, Rami stuffed his mouth with croissants as he turned a corner, except it wasn't the way to the hostel.
ラミー？
Rami turned back to me for a moment, a wistful look in his eyes.
やっぱりエルマーたちが無事か気になるんだ。僕、孤児院の様子を見てくる。ミカは先帰ってて。
ラミーを一人になんてできないよ。
Rami had improved by leaps and bounds last night, but it was only just yesterday that he had collapsed from pain and suffering. Unwilling to let him go solo, I followed him. He didn't stop me. Together we set off for the orphanage. Just before we arrived, I saw a boy with a familiar shock of red hair running towards us. It was Elmar.
エルマー。
あ、師匠、なんでここに？
孤児院の方で変なことなかったかと思ってさ。デュランって人が昨日来ただろ？
デュランさん、昨日ドーナツくれたよ。それで今度俺らを感激に連れて行くって約束してくれたんだ。
そっか。
Elmar's sunny expression told us he didn't know Durand was dead.
デュランさんがどうしたの？
いや、特に何もなかったならいいんだ。他になんか変なことなかった？子供たちの人数が減ってるとかさ。
なんだよ師匠。今朝来たおじいさんと同じこと聞いて。
Old man. I had a bad feeling about this. I'd bumped into someone like that just yesterday, a man who left due to his prior engagement.
エルマ君、それどんな人？なんて言ってた？
え？やたら丁寧な英国風紳士って感じのおじいさんだよ。うちの孤児院にはデュランさんから頼まれて忘れ物取りに来たって言ってたっけ？でも孤児院にはなかったみたいでさ、がっかりした顔してたよ。
Must have been the drops of Erd.
なかった。本当？
うん。結構長いこと隅々まで探してたから本当になかったんだと思う。それで院長先生がせめて朝ごはんを一緒にって言ったんだけど、急いでアヌシーまで忘れ物を取りに行かないといけないからってすぐに帰っちゃったんだ。
アヌシーにまさか。
Right then, a car whizzed past us. Just for a moment, I caught a glimpse of the person inside. It was House Steward.
僕追いかけてくる。
Rami shoved the bag of baked goods into my hands and hopped onto the motorcycle we'd parked nearby.
待ってラミー、私も行く。
I guess the rest of the crew isn't ever going to get breakfast. Rami looked conflicted, then nodded.
早く乗って。
エルマ君、ごめん。そこのドミトリーの2階にいる人たちに私たちがアヌシーに向かったって伝えておいて。
いいけど。
I handed the bakery bag to Elmar and hopped into the sidecar. We immediately took off, speeding after House Steward's car. No, we're going to end up in France, yeah. Chapter 16, Rami, Lustrous Moon. Even though House Steward's vehicle was no longer in sight, Rami pressed ahead without seeming lost.
ラミー、どこへ向かってるの？
アヌシーにあるデュランの屋敷。僕が忘れ物を取りに行くって言ってただろ。多分ハウススチュワードはあの屋敷にあるウルズの雫を取りに行ったんだと思う。
Rami accelerated, going faster than ever before, his somber gaze fixed forward.
だから早くあいつの屋敷に行ってウルズの雫を先に回収しなきゃ。クラウンが手に入れる前に。本当なら一生近づきたくない場所だったけどさ、あんな薬がクラウンの手元に渡るなんて許せないから。実の娘であるクリステルにまで使ったんだ。きっとあいつらは自分たちに都合よく誰かを操るために使うに決まってる。もし君が連れ去られたら君にも使うかもしれない。だからそうなる前にせめてデュランの屋敷にある分だけでも先回りして破棄したいんだ。
Oh yeah, let's dump the drugs into the local water supply. That should fix the problem.
そうだよね。
That drug was a scourge on the earth. Recalling the effect it had on Crystal sent a shiver down my spine. We absolutely couldn't let House Steward get a hold of it.
でもクラウンはすでにウルズの雫を持ってるんだよね。クリステルに使ってたから。
うん。でもチャンセラーが言ってただろ。完成したばかりの貴重な品だって。君が椅子を投げた時も身を挺して守っていた。だからまだ完成品はそう多くないと思うんだ。ハウススチュワードもエルマーたちの孤児院を必死に探してたっていうくらいだしさ。だからあいつらより先に発見して壊せば一矢報いられるはずだ。そしてできればウルズの雫の製法そのものも盗み出して消し去りたい。だからデュランの屋敷に行くんだ。ウルズの雫がどうやって作られたのか知るために。
France, Annecy, August 5th, 2028, 11:04, Saturday. Streets. What's your favorite place, Top Cat? After 3 hours on the road, we arrived in Annecy with the sun high in the sky.
それであそこがあいつの屋敷なんだけど。
Several patrol cars were parked in front of Duran's mansion. Oddly enough, there was a heated argument going on. Police were asking to search the mansion, but the security detail wouldn't let them in.
トゥーンで発生した殺人事件の捜査だ。協力をしていただこう。
殺人事件の捜査？悪いが、デュラン氏が許可したものでなければ、ここを通すことはできない。お引き取り願おう。
そのデュラン氏が殺されたのだ。そこを通しなさい。我々は何人たりとも通さないよう命令されている。警察だろうとこの屋敷には入らせない。
何これ、どういうこと？
屋敷の人はデュランの死を知らないように見えるけど。
With the police determined to pursue the murder case and the guards resolved to follow Duran's orders, their argument kept going on in circles.
めんどくさいことになってるな。ハウススチュワードがまだ来てなさそうなのは良かったけどね。警察にあれが押収されたら余計にややこしくなる。早く行かなきゃ。
If the police found the drops of Erd, their case would branch off into Duran's possession of drugs. Or so I wanted to believe. Considering recent events, I had little faith in the police. If they decided to cover it up instead, there would be nothing we could do. If the law wasn't going to protect us, we just had to break it. I found it ridiculous that the only way to achieve true justice was to tread the path of evil. Quiet as ever, Rami searched for a place to sneak in. He stopped in front of one section of the mansion's high fence.
ここが監視カメラの死角だよ。僕が逃げ出した時も、あいつ、ここが穴だって気づかなかったんだ。あの頃から変わってないんだな。
Rami shivered, hesitating to scale the fence that should have been a breeze for him.
本当は君にはここで待っててって言えたらいいんだけど。ごめん、そばにいてほしい。怖いんだ。
He took my hand. His trembling fingertips conveyed his fear and pain. Rami was being honest with me, telling me he didn't have the courage to go on alone. Yet, through his touch, I caught a glimpse of something more. Huh? I couldn't see it well, which was a first for me. Normally, I'd be able to clearly see whatever the person I touched had in mind. I had a feeling it was some terrible memory, so I nodded reassuringly.
もちろんだよ。一緒にいるって言ったでしょ。
ごめん。ありがとう。じゃあ、行くよ。
Rami kicked off the ground without a second, leaping on top of the fence. He took a rope from his pouch and threw one end down for me to climb. Rami was waiting for me, just out of reach. I grabbed the rope and began to climb as quietly as possible. Security inside the mansion was lax, maybe because of the commotion out front. I followed Rami, avoiding the servants who passed by from time to time. He seemed nervous. Before he could lose composure, I took his hand and walked ahead. I couldn't glean anything from his fingertips, only a veil of mist. France, August 5th, Annecy, 2028, 11:18, Saturday, mansion. Eventually, we entered a room. Rami locked the door behind us and heaved a sigh. His eyes darted around the dark space.
ここだよ。ここがあいつの部屋だ。多分ウルズの雫もここにある。
じゃあ私はこっちを探すね。
うん。お願い。
Rami and I opened the wardrobe in the spacious room, searching for the drops of Erd. Yet we didn't find a single ampule in any of the drawers. It probably wasn't here after all. Just as I began to worry, I heard a gasp from behind me.
なんだここ。
Rami had opened a small door. His body stiffened at the sight before his eyes.
ラミ
It didn't seem like he'd found an ampule, but he was acting strange. The moment I touched his hand, a searing pain tore through my body. It hurt. This was Rami's memory. His emotions were so violent, so turbulent, that I dropped his hand, wondering what on earth I'd seen. Rami's face turned pale as he stared at the dim, tiny room. It had no windows, and something had been carved all over the walls. What is this? No, not carved. Clawed. Fingernails had scratched up every corner, and there were dark stains on the floor. There was nothing inside, but it only made the gaping black space even more intimidating.
やだ。こんな場所、僕、知らない。知らない。
知らない？そんなはずはないでしょう。
I whirled around at the unexpected voice and came face to face with House Stewart.
ラミー・カリエール。あなたは覚えているはずです。そこはあなたのための鳥かごだったのですから。
Nah, of course he's going to show up at the worst time.
鳥かご
In my shock, I was rooted to the spot. House Stewart approached us with graceful steps.
屋敷の警備員たちを排除するのにいささか手間取りましたが、お会いできて何よりです。
あなたまさか。
Had he defeated all the security guards and officers in front of the mansion? Rami quivered in terror. I moved to shield him, only for House Steward to apologize.
渋滞に巻き込まれ、お待たせして申し訳ありません。しかしお二人とも随分とお早いお月ですね。道路交通法を違反なさったのではありませんか?
I think the worst thing about him being here is he can defeat the entire crew all by himself. So these guys don't have a chance.
何を
私は法令を遵守することを信条としておりますから、到着に時間がかかってしまいました。ですが、間に合ったようでよかった。
I couldn't understand him. This man had tried to kidnap me, and he claimed to have neutralized the guards. How could he follow traffic laws yet break so many more? Rami loudly slammed the door to the tiny room shut, his pale face dotted with sweat.
ラミー、大丈夫？
ごめん、大丈夫だよ。早くウルズの雫を見つけなきゃ。
おや、お二人はここにウルズの雫があると思われていたのですか？無理もありませんな。あのような仕打ちを受けていれば、そのように誤解されることもあるでしょ
う。は？何言ってんだよ。ここにウルズの雫が保管されてるから、あんただって取りに来たんだろ。
私はウルズの雫を保管する金庫の鍵を取りに来ただけですよ。この屋敷に今はウルズの雫はありません。あれはすべて研究所で厳重に保管されておりますから。彼がなかなか鍵の場所を教えてくださらないので、いささか手間取りましたが、最後には素直に話してくださいましたよ。
やはりあなたがデュランを殺したのね。
こうなる以前の彼は優秀な研究者でした。醜悪な本性が現れなければまだまだご活躍できたものを。本当に残念です。
That's right. Went all the way to France for nothing. Without denying his crime, House Steward stalked closer.
それではそこをどいていただきましょうか。
He was basically admitting the key was in the tiny room, all the more reason for us not to budge. Durand was a terrible scoundrel. I would never forgive him for stealing Rami's peaceful life. However, I couldn't hide how disgusted I was by House Steward killing someone in cold blood and treating it like a trivial matter. No matter how guilty a person was, they were supposed to be given an opportunity to atone for their sins in this modern era. I mean, well, otherwise people would no longer understand the purpose of laws. The societal structure that had taken so long to build would collapse. Yeah, I don't think anybody would really be hurt by this one little murder. We definitely couldn't hand the drops of Erd over to people like him. Rami and I exchanged glances, silently asking each other what to do. Rami held my hand to spur himself on, but I could only sense a fragile, hollow bravery amid the raging static.
中には何もなかった。あんたは嘘をつかまされたんだ。残念だったな。鍵は見つからないよ。あんたが殺してくれてよかった。これでウルズの雫の研究は全部闇に葬られたんだ。
Rami spat out every word, glaring daggers at House Steward. The old manservant looked down at him with pity.
中に何もなかったのであれば、そこをどけばよろしいでしょう。それとも、その小部屋の扉を開かれたくない理由が何かおありでも？
そんなはず。
あなたは知っているはずだ。その小部屋にある小さな隠し棚の存在を。
知らない。
A terrible static assailed my senses as the memories Rami was desperate to keep hidden came and went in waves.
彼にされた仕打ちを忘れようとしていただけでしょう。ご自身の心を守るためにね。
違う。そうだ。僕はウルズの雫を使われたから。それで覚えていないんだ。僕は。
あなたはウルズの雫を使われていないはずです。彼のお気に入りでしたからね。
Oh. Rami had told me he was forced to take the drops of Erd. Every time he was dosed, he wound up with strange new wounds.
違う。
あなたにはちゃんと記憶があるはずです。その傷ができた時の記憶が。
違う。
ウルズの雫には効果の発動の引き金になるキーワードがあります。それすらあなたは知らないでしょう。
近寄るな!
Rami's eyes widened as he flattened his back against the door. He reached into his pocket and whipped out his small survival knife. It was hardly a weapon. Unbothered, House Steward took a step closer.
彼は研究者としては優秀でした。ウルズの雫の試作品は彼が個人で作り上げたものです。改良を重ねれば実用化できるはずだとチャンセラーは確信いたしておりました。ゆえに援助を惜しまなかったのです。
House Steward advanced another step, as though encroaching on the door to Rami's memories. The static became greater, fiercer.
研究は進み、ウルズの雫の開発は最終段階へと達しました。あとは試験体を使っての検証と調整のみ。あなたたちはウルズの雫の完成に大いに貢献した功労者ではありませんか。特にあなたは特別な役割を担っておりました。ウルズの雫を投与されたご友人の方々のお相手をするという重要な役割を務めたのです。
違う。
なぜあなただったのかお分かりですか。
やめろ。
デュランは美しいものが好きでした。とりわけ美しく儚いものが壊れていく様を観察するのが何よりも喜びだったのです。私には理解できませんが。
Okay, boy, I did not see this one coming.
ゴミ捨て場の天使。当時のあなたはそう呼ばれておりましたね。
やめろ。
私は見ていたのです。
やめろ。
あなたが壊れていく様を。
やめろ。
Rami's emotions were throttled past their limits, bursting forth with his scream.
殺せ。殺せよ。死んだ方がマシだ。早く殺してくれよ。
A dull shock akin to an electric current singed my fingers. As it pushed away, I stumbled backwards and let go of Rami's hand. I fell back against the wall and gasped. Next to me, Rami glared at House Steward with intense hatred.
違う。やめろ。言うな。ミカの前で言うなよ。
House Steward ignored Rami's desperate pleas.
デュランの悪癖に私たちは目をつむっておりました。彼に求めていたのはあくまで成果。人間性などどうでもよかったですからね。しかし彼はウルズの雫を使った金儲けを思いついたのです。我々の援助を受けながらに。これは紛れもなく背任です。彼と同じ思考の者は富裕層にあまりに多かった。 同志を嗅ぎ分け、彼はウルズの雫でビジネスを始めたのですよ。
ビジネス。
対象に記憶さえ残さないウルズの雫は驚くほどの金を生み出したことでしょ
う。Rami dropped his knife, hands trembling. He looked at me and shook his head, silently mouthing the word no.
ですが、これはクラウンの崇高な理念に反する背信行為です。私は再三忠告を申し上げました。崇高なる使命を果たす自覚を持たれよと。しかし彼は我らと共同で開発したウルズの雫を私利私欲を満たすことに利用することをやめなかった。いえ、一層激しく傾倒するようになったのです。彼個人の思考を満たすためだけの配信であったならば黙認することもできましたが、あろうことか我々にこう提案してきたのです。ウルズの雫が欲しければそれだけの地位をよこせと。斧が分をわきまえず彼はそう言った。薬の開発が終わり、自分の役目がなくなるのを危惧したのかもしれません。欲の膨らみきった人間は醜い。己に与えられた使命も忘れた人間は粛清されるべきなのです。
だから殺したというの。
身分をわきまえず分別を持たない人間などクラウンに必要ありませんからな。彼の研究は信頼できる研究員に引き継がせることが決まりました。もう利用価値を失っていたのです。ラミー・カリエール、そこをおどきなさい。こんな古巣で人生を終えたくはないでしょう。いや、あるいはあなたの人生はここで幕を閉じた方が幸せなのかもしれませんね。あの時殺して差し上げられなかった私のせめてもの罪滅ぼしとして。
House Steward stared at Rami, readying his cane. His eyes held no bloodlust, only the cold indifference of someone about to clean dirty dishes. Rami stood there, frozen in place. His gaze went beyond House Steward, as though Durand loomed behind the old manservant. Before I could think, I launched forward and slammed into House Steward.
Rami! Nigete!
I wanted to buy him time. Even seconds would do. Something drove into my abdomen, sending me flying back into the wall. The impact winded me.
あなたはおとなしく眠っておいてなさい。殺すのは我が主の望むところではありませんからね。
My vision flickered, and I could barely stand. House Steward had hit me, but I didn't have the strength to bounce back from it.
それでは王女様、おやすみなさいませ。
House Steward stood before me, brandishing his cane. I wanted to run, yet my body refused to move.
Mika! くそ。やめろ。やめろ！
Rami leapt, picking up the knife he'd dropped earlier. Their two weapons clashed with a shriek of metal on metal, sparks flying in the air.
よくもミカを。よくも傷つけたな！
Rami jumped between me and House Steward. His boyish, slender back seemed much broader than before.
これ以上は指一本だって触れさせない。絶対に傷つけさせない。
ご安心を。あとは気を失う程度の痛みを与えるだけでございます。
ふざけんな。それを傷つけるって言うんだよ。
Rami swung his knife, and House Steward held up his cane to block.
現状を記録するぞ。
これで OK？
Okay, we are at the hour. So, unfortunately, this is it's quite a cliffhanger I have to leave it on. This is meowmurai. You've been watching Despera Drops, running on Nintendo Switch 2. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream. Really interesting to see what's going to happen tomorrow.